My father, actually, he's from the prefecture of Tottori, and his home was a shipbuilder, and they also had a small sawmill. My father's, I think, cousin or uncle had been to Canada even before my father came, and my father heard that there were large trees and big sawmills in Canada, and he wanted to learn about sawmill. He wanted to become an engineer, a technician, to operate a sawmill. So he came to Canada by himself. He was still single, and he came to Canada in 1905. And when he first came, he worked at what is now known as the original Hastings sawmill. So that's where he worked. And when he first came, he had heard of, or he knew of, I think he was introduced to Reverend Kaburagi of the then Methodist Church, Japanese Methodist Church in Vancouver. So he actually stayed at that church, and then he commuted to the sawmill from that church. So he also became a very devoted Methodist Christian. And he worked for a number of years at the Hastings sawmill, and I guess he felt that he saved enough money, and he went back to Japan, and he married my mother, and my father came back with his bride in 1912 or 1913. But from there on, my father's dream or desire was to continue to learn all about the sawmill industry, and particularly the technical side. So when he first came back to Canada with his new bride, he worked in a little woodcraft shop in Steveston. They were then making floats for the fishermen, the fishing nets. They used to use wooden floats. Later on they had glass floats, but at that time it was all wooden floats. So he worked in a little, I'm not sure that it was a factory, but a wood workshop where they built the wooden floats. But his desire was still to work for a larger sawmill. So my oldest brother was born in Steveston. And then my father heard about a sawmill in northern British Columbia near Prince Rupert. He also had the idea, and I guess he was told that instead of Vancouver, Prince Rupert, which would be closer to Japan, Prince Rupert would become the gateway to Asia or to Japan, and he got the impression that Prince Rupert would become the big city on the west coast. So when he heard about this sawmill near Prince Rupert, he decided to go to Prince Rupert and then work in the sawmill near there. And this place where this sawmill was is a place called Swanson Bay. Swanson Bay is no longer there because it was always originally just a sawmill town. There was nothing but the sawmill. So he got a job at the Swanson Bay sawmill. And then my other brothers and sisters, in fact, the three of them, were all born in Swanson Bay. So this would be in 1917, 1919, and 1920s. There were three brothers and sisters were born in Swanson Bay. And when he worked several years in Swanson Bay, he got an offer. By this time he advanced himself, and he was learning all the things about a sawmill. So he became he got the position is what is called a millwright. And a millwright is like an engineer of a sawmill who knows everything about the the operation, the mechanical operation of a sawmill. So he became a millwright. And then he was asked to join a sawmill in a place called Inglewood, which is northern Vancouver Island. Inglewood is used to be, before the war, one of the largest sawmills even in the world. There were several hundred workers there. And during that time, before the war, all the Asian laborers were treated, were discriminated. They would not earn the same wages as the Caucasian, or we call the Hakujin. In any event, and even in the workplace, they were separated. So there was the Japanese workers, and then there was the Caucasian workers, or what was called the Canadian crew. So he became the millwright of the sawmill in Inglewood. Plus, he was the superintendent, or they called him the boss of the Japanese workers. And he spent many years at Inglewood. By this time, the older brothers had to go to school, not just public school, but to high school and to possibly technical school or even university. So, and there was no such facilities in Inglewood. So my father bought a house in New Westminster. It was actually an old church, which he rebuilt himself, renovated, and our family that was going to become our permanent home. I come from a family of 8 brothers and sisters, and so with our parents, I think New Westminster was the first time the whole family of 10 were together.